I'm really excited today that our next guest is Andrew Salzberg, Executive Vice President of CCG and the manager overall of NGC Authentication, which is basically the coin authenticating arm of CCG. So founded in 1987, NGC is a premier grading and authenticating company in rare coins and very well known to everybody in the industry. In 2021, CGC was acquired by the Blackstone Group, industry strength and potential for massive growth, especially in other collectible categories like sports and game card grading, game cartridges, and other exciting new areas. We'll certainly find out more about those in this conversation, but specifically, Andy Salzberg is focused on the coin part, and he's bringing a lot of this new ideas and technology that they've applied in the sports cards arena now back into coins. So it's quite exciting because we've been pretty static in how we've graded and authenticated coins here for the last few decades, and maybe even for the last few centuries. NGC is an incredible company with tremendous history in numismatics. They have scores of experts devoted to US, world, and ancient coins, and they're a powerhouse in our business. Andy, thank you for joining us today. It's a real privilege. Before we jump into the conversation, can you give us and our viewers a quick background on your experience in the numismatic industry?
Sure. Yeah. First, thanks for having me on, John. So it's always a pleasure talking to you, and love what the Coin Dealer newsletter and what Gray Sheet does for our industry. I think it's a huge component. Without it, a lot of us would be lost. And so, my experience background, I came into this space. I think a lot of people are aware of my father, more so than they might be of me within the numismatic space. My father, Mark Salzberg, who you recently did an interview with, he was a very early member of NGC, as well as the founder of Certified Collectibles Group. So coins and collecting and collectibles in general is sort of in my blood or my DNA, really. And I had a brief stint in college, but I pretty much knew what I wanted to do early on, and that was get into the coin space in some form or fashion. I just was really intrigued that I could get in and make a living without a college degree. And I obviously had some connections. I at least could get my foot in the door, but I knew that I didn't want to work for my father. I wanted to kind of make it on my own 2 feet, if you will. So I started out with a job with John Mabin, Rare Coins, and then that transitioned into building the Modern Coin Mart brand, and was there for about 6 years before we were able to eventually find a buyer for that business, and we sold that business to Asset Marketing. And I learned an incredible amount from John and John Mabin and Jay Rudo, who are the two owners of that business, and really just a full education on what it takes to run a retail coin business. I mean, we sold anything from silver rounds that were priced at 65 cents over spot to rarer coins, ancients. So it was a really wide variety of material and a very wide variety of customers, because we sold primarily through our website, but we also had a huge eBay presence at the time, and we also had a really substantial wholesale business. So then after Asset purchased us, we ran Modern Coin Mart as a standalone business for a few years, and that proved to be very positive. The first 2.5 years, and things going very, very well. Asset Marketing decided to integrate the two businesses, so they're really, from afar, it looked like there was a different business. That Modern Coin Mart was a separate business, but really, it was just one of our brands. It became one of Asset Marketing's brands. They have obviously GovMint, Modern Coin Mart, and then not a lot of people know, or at least some people do, but not everybody, that LPM in Hong Kong was a really important brand for us as well. And that business was multifaceted, many retail outlets, channels. They did print advertising, radio, TV, outbound sales. Obviously, we had our 3 websites, wholesale. And so what I did for that business was I ran product development and digital marketing. So my job was really to work with all the mints around the world and develop new programs, and also source existing material from dealers all around the country. And so I was sort of on the other side of the table. I was a dealer. I was a customer of NGC. And then the timing just seemed like it made sense to me, to Steve Eichenbaum, to my father, and I was looking for a new challenge. And so again, the timing just happened to work out the way it did, and I came over just prior to the transaction, so it was a pretty intense time period with all of the everything that goes into selling a business of this size, and also a very new challenge for me. So it's been an incredible education getting the, I had the retail and sort of wholesale side of the numismatic space. Now on the grading and certification, authentication side, just a very different business. But I've really enjoyed the challenge, and that's my background.
Yeah, well, it's fascinating. And I recall when you started at Modern Coin Mart, what you guys did over there. And I think that company was really revolutionary for its time. I think if you look at it today, you say, okay, there's a lot of companies that have very progressive websites and really high-end presentations of their retail materials. But at the time that you guys started that, you and John Maven and carried that on, it was revolutionary. It changed things quite a bit. It reached out beyond, I think, the existing collector base of coins that we look at, in this pond that we thought were the known numismatists, and you guys helped grow that. And I think that's why you were probably so valuable over at Asset. And now what you're doing at NGC and at CCG is, I guess, bringing that experience and to the next part of this conversation, which is this revolutionary idea that I'm really excited to hear about. I know our listeners are, about this NGCX, as you're calling it. So
Yeah,
let's hear about that.
Correct. Yeah. So, but before I go into that, you're right. John Maben was really, it really was revolutionary. He was kind of the first dealer, if you will. He was really a businessman. He really saw an opportunity to sell certified modern coins, right, even though he's really a rare coin expert. He's like he was the president of NGC at one point. He's an incredible numismatist, but he saw an opportunity, and he was really the first person to go out online to sell certified modern material. And then you saw the landscape change pretty quickly as he gained traction, and a lot of people with a lot of expertise from a digital marketing experience also changed the landscape with the likes of AppMax, JM Bullion, et cetera. But so we're definitely dealing with a very different time period, and that kind of brings me to NGCX and why we did this. And the thrust of NGCX was really to bring more people into the hobby. That we're looking at the long-term health of the numismatic industry and thinking about younger collectors. I thought a lot about my experience at Asset Marketing in terms of trying to sell brand new people who had never bought a coin before a certified coin. And one of the first questions, if not the first question we always got, was, what do you mean by 70? Why is it so important that, right, it's on why not 100? Why not 10? So that was always a barrier. And so we're trying to remove as many barriers as we possibly can to for marketers, for dealers to have really productive discussions with collectors and get them interested in the hobby. And the 10-point scale is universally understood. Think of sort of anything that is graded. We all think of a 10 as sort of that thing that you want to attain. And so that's the main thrust of the launch of NGCX.
Right. I mean, for the uninitiated, we grade coins on a 0 through 70 scale. We also call the Sheldon scale, which is because somebody wrote a book called Penny Whimsy, I think at the turn of the 20th century, in the early 1900s, about copper coins. And this author wrote about how coins should be designated on a 0 through 70 scale, of which 70 was never to be achieved. And really, in those worlds, something greater than 65 was never achieved. Yet this stuck. Everybody's been using it since that time. So Andy has cleverly said, maybe that's not the best way. And so this is what NGCX is all about. And I agree with you that it's very interesting to try something new. And I think you and I spoke before this conversation about, what reception would this have at the initial press release? And I know what mine was, it was like, I like that. I mean, who knows if it's going to work? But I like the boldness of a move, because in this business, everyone sits around and says, oh, maybe we should do this. Maybe we should raise buyer's fees at auctions, or maybe we should do such and such. But people really, big companies especially, are very slow to change, very risk averse. So I applaud you for the move. And I've heard through the grapevine, through chat rooms, that everyone kind of has the same effect. It's like nobody, I don't know, maybe you'll tell me otherwise, but I haven't seen people with torches getting all excited about this being a horrible idea. It's revolutionary, and everything revolutionary is a little bit risky. So I'm sorry to interrupt you on that. I just wanted to throw that in there, that I think it's a bold move, and that's why we're talking, because I want to hear and share with the people who watch this video your thoughts, because there's some more to the backstory than just, hey, this is my idea of what you were thinking. I want to know what you were thinking.
So yeah, I mean, first of all, this was a very, very well thought out, tons of internal discussion. We really like to have a collaborative environment here at CCG. So this is not, one person's idea. This is a collection of data that we've gotten over many, many years. I mean, I remember talking to Scott Heller about a 10-point scale 10 years ago when I was at Modern Coin Mart, and just kicking it around. We never thought it would come to fruition. We were just like, hey, what if they were graded on this scale? And it never really materialized into anything. But you're right. It is a very bold move. And that's why so much thought and so much effort went into the decision. It is very risky for us. You're right. I mean, our modern business and on our 69, 70, that kind of, brand new material is a big part of what we do. So, we're really sticking our necks out there, and we're saying, hey, we want to be kind of holding that torch, saying we want to grow the industry. We want more people to be a part of the hobby. And we figured, why not us? Why can't we be the ones that set the pace and for innovation within this industry? And we're not done yet either. I mean, we have, more things on the horizon that are, I think, exciting from a customer's perspective, from a dealer's perspective. And, I think we'll be able to provide even better service. Turnaround times are always something that our customers are interested in. And, we're working to improve on a number of fronts. So that's, again, but the main thrust, kind of setting everything else aside, it was the idea that we have a chance at least to bring new collectors into the hobby. Now, this isn't for everybody. I mean, the 70-point scale is not going away. We are not trying to replace it. We're not trying to say that the 70-point scale is better than or equal to or less than the 10-point scale. It's just something different. So we're not saying it's worse or better, or it's just something different. And we're not going to know if this is really going to be a success for the industry and for NGC, and for a little while. Like, we haven't slabbed a single coin. We're not going to be slabbing encapsulating anything until January. And we don't have any data yet on how people's sales are going, if response rates are changing, if people are putting out ads with the 70 and measuring that response rate, and then putting out a 10 measuring that response rate and seeing how things differ. We don't have any of that data yet, but so there was a bit of gut feel that went into this for sure, and it makes me nervous. I'm typically a pretty data driven guy, but this is we went for it.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, so in other words, you haven't thrown this in front of focus groups and said, how does this make you feel when you hold a coin that says 10 versus 70? But for me, I would not either. I would just go for it. I mean, it feels like you have the experience with Modern Coin Mart's background. You know who the buyer is, who, or could be, and you know how they might be appealed to. And as you say, it may not work, but fortune favors the bold, and hopefully, it will in this case. I think it's a good idea. I have no idea if it's a profitable idea, and I know, you guys are held to a different standard these days than just having fun with good ideas, but I hope both of them concur and happen at the same time in this particular case. I think it's exciting, and I agree with you that the 0 through 70, you can't bring laymen into this hobby on 70. Nobody understands. I have to have a 70. Well, okay, great. How about 100? So,
Right.
So anyway, let's just real quickly then, how do you see where as this develops, and let's say it gets traction. I'm not saying it hits home, lightning or anything, but just I'm sure you anticipate some success. Then are how will submitting happen? We've talked a little bit about that. I think that's a question a lot of people have, is who can submit these coins, and how will that come going forward?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And because we were taking such a big risk from a number of different perspectives, one, just how is our brand going to be perceived, but also we have an incredible amount of inventory and material that's specific to the 70-point scale, so we really don't want people to abandon that, and we just didn't want to open this up to everybody at first, because we really wanted to see how things go. It's much easier for us to pivot, pull different levers, if we kept it tight. So we had to kind of draw a line in the sand and pick a really defensible, definitive number as far as who would be allowed in the program to begin with. Right now, it's a group of 12 bulk submitters, and they had to reach a certain revenue threshold with NGC in order to be a part of the program. And that is not perfect. There are many companies out there that support NGC, but they do so indirectly. And so they might be buying coins already holdered, and they're not submitting directly. So I recognize fully that there are going to be some upset people as it relates to how we initially launched this. However, my hope is that they understand how big of a risk this was for us, and how we couldn't kind of subjectively pick and choose who would and would not be a part of the program. There are definitely some people that I would have loved to have participated in this program who are not yet. But my hope is that this is a success, and we can open this up to a much broader audience, and that's really the goal. Is we really want this to be perceived well. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is that we really didn't like my hope for day one. Let's say it's January 1, we start to encapsulate coins. We start to get orders in from our customers, and coins submitted for the 10-point scale. My hope is actually that there isn't like a flood of submissions for the 10-point scale, and it's just this over the top kind of initial success. I'm actually hoping people really think about how they're going to build this into their marketing plans, how they're going to speak to the collector, because this is something entirely new, and their business, they rely on the Sheldon scale, the 70-point scale as well, and their business's success is really, or at least I should say that differently. Our business's success is a reflection of their success. If dealers and collectors aren't buying and trading, and there isn't velocity, then we don't do well. But I really want to see this sort of slow burn and this slow build as we see new collectors enter the hobby. We're wanting this to be incremental rather than we're just replacing one scale for the other. So that's the hope.
Yeah. So I mean, it sounds. I mean, I want to use the word soft launch. Is that kind of what you're doing? You're just sort of, you got this limited pool, and then at some period of time, and then not too distant future, if it's going well and you feel good about a capacity and ability to create and accept more submissions, and you feel that the environment is good, you'll open it up to maybe the next tier of submitters, and then the next tier, and so on. And maybe in a couple of years, it's the same submission process, maybe for everything else. Is that the idea?
Yeah, I don't know what the timeline would look like, or how the extent to which we would open it up. It's all going to be dependent on the data we see and everything. But yes, the long-term vision for the 10-point scale was not to just create a small group of bulk submitters that sort of control the program for time immemorial. I mean,
Right.
that is not, that's just, you're right. That is a good word for it. It's sort of like this soft launch, to test the waters, get feedback. We've already seen, I was very glued to my computer screen the day after launch, looking at all the social media feedback, which is sometimes productive, sometimes not. But
Right.
it was still, I wanted to see it. For good, bad or indifferent, I wanted to see the reaction, and I've been pleasantly surprised. I've been really, really surprised how much people have embraced this and thought this really could expand the hobby.
Right. So surprised, not surprised. That's how I was. I mean, I didn't
Yeah.
study it probably as much as you, but I thought, okay, what's going to, let's look and see what people are saying. And then all of a sudden it turns out, and I know why you say that as well, is because for years there's been this anticipation on the internet in some of the chat groups that say, oh my God, who's going to start, these grading companies are out for a money grab, and they just want to get to the 100-point grading scale whenever they do it. I know it's coming, and it's all about greed. But this isn't about greed. This is really, I think, being perceived this way online as well, that is really about trying to find a new audience, or maybe adapt the current audience. It'll be a nightmare for us in the pricing world to adapt everything. However, it wouldn't bother me, as in a philosophical sense, if everything became graded on a 10-point scale. It's not illogical, as you've said. We are a base 10 world, and here we are in numismatics on a base 70 world. It makes no sense. And I was going to ask you, I don't know if this relates to what you do every day, but at PMG and paper money, is this something that's possible as well? Because it really feels weird to have 70s in paper money, more so than coins. You know what I mean?
Tend to agree with you. It's certainly possible. We want to see how this goes first. I'd like to slab at least one coin in the 10-point scale before we start talking about you know,
Currency. Right. I get it.
currency and even, we've been asked, when will this be open to coins dated earlier than 1982, which is the
Okay.
current cutoff. um I've already being asked those questions, and
Is that the year
I'm
you were born? I mean,
yeah, no, it's not. I was born in 1987, but 1982 just seemed to make sense in terms of, we thought initially, we were like, let's start with 1986, the beginning of the Silver Eagle program, but then we thought about the commemorative program when that started, as well as when pandas were originally released. So we thought, let's move it back just 4 years, but that's as far as we wanted to go for the time being, because we really wanted it to be kind of modern to super moderns, to start with, and then kind of branch out from there as we see more data come through.
very cool. Yeah, I would. That's a good question. I didn't even think to ask, which is why that year. So very good. That's, again, I just want to say that it sounds logical to me. It sounds like you put the thought into it, and I didn't, when I first approached you about discussing this, I wasn't convinced that so much thought had been put into it. So I think this is great, and I think people are going to appreciate understanding the seriousness of the consideration. It's not willy-nilly that y'all did this. Um, I really hope, for your sake and for the industry's sake, that it works, because anything that brings attention and can grow our base, and the time is now in terms of growing our base. I spoke with your father about that. I've spoken with others. It just feels like, in this commercial world where people are seeking interesting collectibles, and coins are becoming sort of an asset class, as we've discussed, that we needed to be more approachable, let's say, by outsiders, and who don't
Yeah.
feel intimidated. And I would be very intimidated coming in and trying to figure out this 70 thing and 69s and where that relates. So
Yeah,
I
we
applaud you
take it
for
for
all of it.
granted because we've kind of, you and I have both sort of grown up in this industry. And so 70 the 70 scale to me is almost just like just part of my vernacular. But then
Sure.
I talk to my friends who work in, say, the tech space or the finance space, and I'm like, yeah, so the Silver Eagle program came out, and unfortunately the 70 rate is really low. They're like, what?
Right.
I'm like, the 70 rate, the rate at which the coins graded the highest grade they can achieve. And every single person's like, and 70 why? And I'm like, that's a good question. Do you have an hour and a half, or
Right.
to
Right.
talk about Sheldon and the book about copper nickels and the origination of and I talk with people like Jeff Garrett and my father and Kevin Lipton, Lee Minchell, really big names who have been in this industry a long time. And you know it's really interesting to see how the hobby has evolved. I mean, prior to the grading services coming online, it was like choice, and choice BU, or it's AU, or it's XF. So then we got really more granular when PCGS and NGC came online, and even the grading standards within the Sheldon scale. I'm sure you've talked to Mark about how those have changed over time, and then you've got just a lot of change that's happened over the course of a long period of time, and this is really no different than that. I mean, it's kind of, I'm hoping that it's sort of the next step for our hobby, and that just means growth within the hobby. Like we certainly do not want to see contraction. We want to see growth, because that benefits all of us, and I think a lot of people can benefit from finding coins and just the enjoyment and passion that it brings to their lives.
I agree. I think it's a visionary idea, and I think it comes from your experience. You couldn't have done it without the experience, and now you're gonna be the father of the 10 scale, I hope. And that's that's not bad for your epitaph, right? I mean, that's a great thing to usher this through. and I hope it works for you, for your sake and for the industry's sake. I hope you.
Oh God, that could be really, really good or really bad for me. I don't know. I don't know which way that could go. So we'll
It's
see.
all chaos, and the more you talk to me, the more you'll know I love chaos. So keep throwing it in the soup, and it'll eventually be really tasty.
Okay. All right. I'll trust you.
Okay, and so one last question. I like to just throw something different out there. Is do you want to tell us about any other ideas that you guys are percolating on, and any you want to give us any tidbits?
Yeah. So we have not been as focused on technology as maybe we could have been in the past. And so there obviously technology has completely changed every part of our lives, right? And so it's no different for our space. You know, technology is sort of like um the great disruptor. So we are exploring um some really exciting uh technology in the form of artificial intelligence that will hopefully the idea is to make us a better, more efficient, and more accurate business, as well as being able to detect counterfeiting, you know, in a more substantial, more effective way. I can't say, and I know sort of the wheels are turning. What I don't want to, I don't think there's any way that human graders can be replaced. That is not a possibility because there is so much that goes into eye appeal and luster and the various things that a grader has to assess. You know, things like attribution and the pedigree of a coin are sometimes really, really critical and important things to capture that a computer just never will be able to. But technology can be there to help us and assist us and make us and challenge us to be a better version of what we've attempted to be for so long. And so we're embracing that challenge. And I really applaud our executive team, like, you know, Steve Eichenbaum, our CEO, Max Spiegel, our president, our COO, Mike Brown, and uh, our CIO, Jason. And we've added to our executive team with some really smart technologists and people that come from outside the industry to give us some, you know, because we get sort of this very myopic view sometimes where we're just buried in our own little world. And they've come in and really challenged us to think differently. And, you know, so I think with the additions of technology and our investment in technology and the incredible people that our executive team has brought in, I think the combination could be extremely powerful.
Yeah,
So
I agree with you. I mean, it just feels like the time is now to start blending these artificial intelligence things, or let's say machine learning regarding identification of items, and maybe moderns. You know, it seems to me that modern coins could be graded, machine graded. I know we can't grade classic coins. I think that's a fool's errand to try to take a 3-cent nickel and say with toning or not toning. But you know, coins that are basically manufactured and looking for perfection or degrees of perfection, that is something that, to my mind, machines should be able to discern in the same way that, I don't know, a computer can see screws coming off of a manufacturing assembly line and saying, kick out those, they're not perfect, they're not perfect. How many marks are on a modern coin should be theoretically doable, always with humans, I think, to assess, you know, final, you know, authentication standards. But I agree. And I think it's really exciting. And I know you guys are on top of that. I've talked to Steve as well, and everybody's thinking forward about all of those things. So that's great. And, you know,
yeah.
thanks so much for joining me today. It's been great. It's been a great conversation. And I know that people are really interested in hearing what you had to say. So it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, thanks, John. I really appreciate your time and always looking for ways to collaborate with CDN and other members of the industry. So this has been fantastic. I hope it's brought some awareness and something that people can get something out of, and would love to chat again soon.
Andy, thank you so much for joining us today. It's really been an interesting conversation, and I think everyone's going to find it quite fascinating. To our viewers, thank you for joining us in these important industry chats. If you want more of this content, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Also, of course, we'd love for you to check out our website at graysheet.com. We've got great values on our subscription packages and pricing on hundreds of thousands of items. Thank you very much.